everyone, welcome to the 304th episode of the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and your co-host,
Kevin Toffel.
I'm so excited because I finally got used to saying the 300 and something episode, because for 100 episodes I was saying 200, and it's hard to get over that, right?
Mm-hmm. It's like the checkbook and the date on your checks at the beginning of the year.
I was just going to say that, except nobody writes checks anymore, so I still have a problem.
I know.
Okay, we've got a great show. We're going to be talking about a vulnerability in P2P cameras. We're going to be talking about Wi-Fi 6E. Also, we've got an update. Actually, it's a big update from Amazon on the Madam A digital assistant. We're going to be talking about our new president and his Peloton. Plus, Phillips has some new gear. Google has a bunch of announcements, including what we think is the completion of the Google Fitbit deal. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And we've got our guest, who is Ron Korber, who is the CEO and co-founder at Brizometer. And this is a company that is using sensor data plus math to predict air pollution, fire detection, all of this stuff at really granular levels. So we're going to talk about how to reduce the number of sensors you need, how to create really good collaborations around data sharing, and a lot about detecting air pollution. So all of this and more await you. We're also going to hear from our sponsor, Terra, and we're going to answer a question about the Nanoleaf Essentials, which is a pretty cool light bulb. So let's get this party started with a message from another one of our sponsors. This week's sponsor is the Tech Meme Ride Home podcast. Y'all are already listening to this podcast, and we give you all the news that you need on the Internet of Things, but we probably don't cover everything you might want to know in the tech world. And when the New Yorker magazine asked Mark Zuckerberg how he got his news, he said the one news source he definitely follows is Tech Meme. So for 3 years and nearly 800 episodes, the Tech Meme Ride Home podcast has been Silicon Valley's favorite tech news podcast. It's about 15 to 20 minutes long. It happens every day by 5 p.m. Eastern, and it is all the tech news. So, you want all the IoT news, you come to me. All the tech news, Tech Meme Ride Home. Plus, there's a shorter. So listen to the one podcast that anyone in Silicon Valley listens to every single day. Search your podcast app now for Ride Home and subscribe to the Tech Meme Ride Home podcast. Okay, let's talk about vulnerabilities because, by golly, I don't actually think we talked about vulnerabilities last week. So last week was a week without a security threat. Or no, we just didn't know the security threat.
That we know of.
Exactly. So what we have here is Nozomi Networks. It's a security company. They were doing some research into the Real-Links network video recorders. So these are cameras that are networked together. You can look at the camera feeds from displays on your network, or you can do it from your phones. And they use a P2P protocol to share their data. And Nozomi found out that, one, there are vulnerabilities, and two, the P2P protocol isn't actually disclosed to people. They don't actually tell people what it is. So if you're a security person for your company and you actually did look at the security vulnerabilities, you wouldn't have realized how this guy works, which is not great. Basically, the traffic isn't encrypted. It can be intercepted. And actually, that's part of kind of the design of the way they do this. They do it via something called hole punching, which is allowing you to punch holes in your firewall. And so these things can communicate back and forth to each other. So you could send false data. The worry here is obviously that people can see what's happening in your offices or warehouse or wherever you have these set up. But it's also a concern simply because these are security functions. So you could actually interfere with that and then break into a place, I suppose.
I noticed that it's not just the audio video payload that's not encrypted, but you can use the same hack that was found by the research company to view the credentials, the ID and password of people that have these. Yeah, that's really bad. That should never happen.
Yeah, so this is out there. If you have these cameras, if you have other P2P type cameras, you may want to check them out. Okay, let's see. Oh, you know what? Let's boost our presidential news, because this is also a cybersecurity thing. We discovered this week that President Biden has has a
Likes
Peloton.
to stay in shape.
Yeah, go Biden, man. Get on that bike and pedal like the wind, because those Peloton workouts, they can be quite hard. But this brings up the idea of, hey, how secure is what can happen if you have a connected bicycle in the White House? And this reminds me, this is actually a good thing, I think, to think about, because we're old enough to remember this, but, presidents used to get special, even Obama had a special BlackBerry created for him.
Yep.
It used to be that you didn't have to worry about cybersecurity because, the president in his office had his landline phone, right? And the Secret Service had radios. And it's not like if you need to get in touch with the president, you can get in touch with the president, right? Well, not you or I, but someone important. And then cell phones came along and everybody was used to, posting on Twitter and doing their thing. And this became a real concern for people who were worried about foreign powers spying on presidential communications. And now, with the bringing in of connected devices, maybe not a smart home, like I don't think the White House is kitted out with Phillips Hue bulbs, but a Peloton is an entry point into the network. So my hunch is I would love for someone to tell me how to secure the Peloton in the White House. Is it on its own dedicated network, maybe, that can't touch anything else? I mean, I'm trying to think of the ways that this could be bad, and I'm not really a hacker, so I don't know. But I like that we're thinking about this because we're probably going to benefit down the road as the defense and security infrastructure for the U.S. figures out how to secure this stuff. Hopefully that will trickle down to the rest of us and we'll get new and awesome best practices.
And the Peloton itself, I mean, it can track your heart rate, I believe. It certainly tracks the rotations of the bicycle tire, or not tire, but flywheel and so on and so forth. Like you could get personal health information from it if Peloton's data was hacked or whatever. And that sounds like who cares, but really a foreign power could determine that while publicly the president's in good health, et cetera, maybe he isn't, and they would know that, and that could change some outcomes. I think what Peloton does is great. And we didn't think about this from a security standpoint, but my wife wanted a Peloton and we just didn't buy it because it was too expensive for us. So we bought a non-connected bike for about $400, and she uses the Peloton digital classes. So no data is actually tracked or anything like that. And I'm not saying go do this for security reasons, or that's what Biden should do, but that's one way to mitigate it, I don't think there's any speakers in it. Like, I don't know if he needs to watch what he says. Like, he can't talk about.
Oh, microphones.
Yeah, that's right. My bad. Microphones, right.
I have ridden a friend's Peloton, and I don't recall that. But I was also dying by the middle of my ride, so I probably couldn't have told you anything.
I couldn't speak anyway.
I'm like, I don't think anyone wants to hear me. Like, okay.
Right.
Okay. So just throwing that out there as an interesting security thing and something like we should all be aware of going forward. And maybe we'll get some new best practices out of this. Woohoo.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
So everybody's making a big deal of Wi-Fi 6E right now, and I understand why. And I wondered, I initially thought it would help in the smart home, but you have educated me, and I think it's time for everybody to be educated on this.
Yeah. So Wi-Fi 6E, the E stands for enhanced. It is not a next generation because it's still Wi-Fi 6, but it's they opened up 1200 megahertz of spectrum for Wi-Fi this summer, actually. And so what's happened is chip makers are building chips that allow devices to talk to each other in this brand new spectrum. But you can only enter into this fast lane, as it were, if you are another Wi-Fi 6E device. So all the Wi-Fi 6E devices out there, and there are not that many, but we saw some at CES, those devices can go basically into this 1200 megahertz of spectrum and just shoot packets back and forth like crazy. It's super fast. And it's in the upper megahertz, so it doesn't travel as well through walls, so it's not going to travel as far. But the answer that or the question rather that we've been getting is, crikey, do I need to update? I just updated to Wi-Fi 6. The answer for most people, if you're concerned about your IoT devices, is no. If you've got a lot of laptops, and there aren't that many out here yet. So again, this is one of those, you can buy it when you need it, but you don't have to go refresh everything now. This is probably better for offices. If I were an enterprise customer, I'd be looking at this for mitigating all the like communication between laptops and cell phones on my corporate network. But for most people, most homes, and especially for the IoT, this is kind of a moot thing just because most IoT devices benefit actually from being on the 2.4 gigahertz band because it travels better through walls, right? And a lot of these devices are like, they just want to shout out some state information every now and then. Even video doorbells, because we'll see like video cameras and stuff that are 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. We're probably not going to see those go to 6E because it's overkill and it's going to be super expensive. And you can't really offset that cost for the newer latest gen chip with a device that you want to sell for like $150. On a smartphone, sure. On a computer, sure.
Right. So laptops, wireless desktops, tablets, smartphones in the home, that's where we'll see the benefit as those products gain the support for this. IoT, I was thinking this is going to be great for IoT, so I'm glad you wrote this up. It is not. Yeah.
Or it's just irrelevant. In the sense that it'll be nice because the more traffic you get off of like 2.4, the more like the freer your IoT packets can be. But that's about it. All right, and now for something completely different. We are going to be talking about a bunch of new Phillips Hue products, which, I have a bunch of Phillips Hue products, so this is great. The most exciting one for most of us is going to be, this is announced, we don't know when it's going to come out, later this year. It's the Phillips Hue wall switch module. And this is unique, and I don't know why it's taken them so long, but this is something you install behind your existing light switch. And what it does is it lets you control that light switch. However, unlike my Lutrons, which I use to control my lights, and I don't have smart bulbs in there because they don't work together, the Philips Hue module will work with your Philips Hue bulbs. So what happens here is when someone turns off the lights at the light switch, if you have Philips Hue bulbs, it turns the bulbs off and you can't turn them back on again because you've killed all the power. So what this does is this mitigates that and turns your switch back into a smart switch and you can control it virtually. Lutron actually made something like this to keep it was really just a device that kept your toggle switch, in position and kept it on, but it also worked with the Philips Hue bulbs. And they announced that, I think, 2 years ago at CES, maybe last year. Anyway, the point is this module, it has a battery, so when power is turned off, it still can talk to the switch and explain that it's still on, basically. And that should last for 5 years. You will have to wire it in. It doesn't look super complicated, but I haven't actually seen it in person yet because there was no real CES.
It's like a little bridge module, so that makes it easier to install and because it's supplying its own power. So that makes sense. Not cheap, though. It's $40 for a single one, $70 for a 2-pack. I'd almost want to just get smart switches at that point.
Buy the Lutron. Okay, that's just me. Okay. There's also things like Shelly makes modules. Fabaro used to make modules. Those were Z-Wave modules. Shelly makes Wi-Fi modules. We've talked about them on the show before. Mm-hmm. Okay, other quick Philips Hue news. They have a new dimmer switch that is less ugly. Yay.
I knew you were going to say that.
It's still not my favorite, but it is less bad.
This is the wireless one. This one you don't wire in, correct? You just kind of put it.
Yeah, you just it works on Zigbee. And I used to have one. Where did I have it? I don't have it up right now. I just have an ugly Philips Hue switch in my box of things that I don't use right now. But I used to have one. And I probably will not buy this one because I don't need it. Yeah. And then they have a spotlight to put color on your outdoor walls. Yay.
Yeah. The Aramont is the new outdoor light. They also updated the Appear outdoor light, which they previously had. It's now available in a stainless steel finish.
Which is fancy.
But that's
only going to be in Europe.
Only in Europe for 150 euros, yeah. And in the US, that Aramont is $170 when it becomes available in March per light.
That's Hue pricing.
Yeah.
And then, the dimmer switch, the new dimmer switch is going to be $25. So, honestly, for $25, you might, and if you've already got the bulbs, what you should do, take a wall plate, cap off your switch, stick that in there, and then just stick the wall plate over it.
Right. Then you have like a wall switch, but if you want, you can take it out because it's remote like as well.
Well, then people can turn the switch on and off with the Phillips Hue thing like they're used to doing without affecting your bulbs.
Right. Yeah.
That's
$25.
I guess
not
you have to cap it off in the on position. Never mind. That might be tough.
Probably not exactly legal in certain areas.
I have a friend who 3D printed covers for his traditional light bulbs or light switches and then just popped a new switch, like a Phillips Hue switch next to it. Yeah, that's overkill. I don't know what to tell you. Bye, Lucian. That's what I'm going to tell you. Okay, let's talk about Google. Google has new Nest Hub alarms.
Yeah, they actually talked about this back in October, but people should start seeing it now around the world. You get better customizations and sounds and the sunrise alarm. You can repeat the alarms now. Pick any weekday or every day. Your alarm tones, there's 20 new tones, which is nice. It's not just the same old, same old. You can also change that to light, medium, or heavy sound, which is nice. The sunrise alarm, you can specify something to brighten gently to wake you or play music.
When I get this, I'm going to do the sunrise alarm because I like waking up till late. Although my husband and I sometimes have different wake up times. So the sunrise is terrible if you wake up at like 6:30 and he wants to wake up at 7. Just so y'all know.
Well, in the sunrise alarm, you can change the length of time for the effect. So if you can wake up and he can stay asleep with just a little bit of light, you can set it anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes to go to full brightness of a lamp, for example, or music to play at a certain level. Maybe?
Yeah, I think my marriage would suffer.
I don't want that, no.
And also in Google News, SmartThings now works with Google Nest. We talked about this when they said it was going to happen, and now it has happened. And Kevin?
I tested it the last day of CES. I'm like, I'm not going to find this here. They just announced it. But sure enough, I went to my SmartThings app on my phone and went to the integrations, and I saw Google Nest there. So I tapped it. I authorized Samsung to have access to my Google Nest account and immediately saw and was able to view my Nest video doorbell footage, which is very nice. I do want to point out it's a little limited in that my Nest lock, the Nest by Yale, is not supported. It's currently only cameras, doorbells, and thermostats in the Nest ecosystem.
Boo.
So, it's not like there's a ton of Nest locks out there. There are a lot of Nest cameras and thermostats and presumably doorbells. So hopefully that changes in the future. But it is very nice to see that ecosystem, the two ecosystems bridge together. And I don't think this is the end of it either, because they made a big to-do about this at CES after our last recording. And Samsung was talking about it, and they had one of the Google folks there by video conference. This is a big step forward in their partnership, they say, which means Bixby's gone.
Bye, Bixby.
Bye-bye.
No fondue pot for you. Okay, let's talk about the Google Fitbit acquisition, which presumably is closed. Google put out a blog post saying it is now closed because the EU approved the deal. The U.S. Justice Department did point out that they might undo the deal.
It's still under review with them, I think.
Yeah, so that's a little weird. But Rick Osterloh penned a blog post. He's the head of hardware there. And he's like, hey, here's what you need to know. And as a Fitbit user, I was really interested in this because I've used a Fitbit since it began back in 2011. And I was like, Google Wear sucks. I do not want any of that on my light
it's
or
Android
on my
Wear
wrist. Now. Android
No,
Wear, sorry.
it's Wear OS now. It's
Wear
changed
Wear
a couple
OS.
times. That's why I can't keep it straight. And yes, it still relatively sucks by comparison.
It's not my favorite.
WatchOS, yes.
Yeah. So to get the deal done with the EU, Google did have to say, look, this is about devices, not data. So Google says it will not use for any of your Google ads the health and wellness data collected from wrist-worn wearable devices and other Fitbit devices of users. It won't use that data in the European Economic Area. I think in the blog post, Osterloh wrote that they worked with global regulators on an approach which safeguards consumers' privacy expectations, including a series of binding commitments that we're not going to use the Fitbit data for Google Ads. I never thought they were going to do that anyway.
No.
That seems like a really retroactive way of looking at what Google's trying to do here. I do think the data is going to be used and tied to other services going forward. And I don't know how people are going to feel about that. So
I agree with you completely, because otherwise, what is Google really buying access to?
Right. The Fitbit hardware, which is nice, but Google's not a hardware company. And every time it does hardware, it does it with such a
It does it from an engineering perspective, not an end user perspective.
Well, and it doesn't feel like it's really committed. You think about all the products that it pushes out, and then, it's like Pixels, which are like testing, but they're not like a legit real phone effort, right? I'm sorry. I love my Pixel, but it's true. This is Google saying, hey, this is how this should look. It's not Google saying, I want to take over the phone market. The Nest devices are a little bit different. So I think having a popular wrist-worn device gives you a lot of options in becoming a better digital assistant. It also gives you much more interesting information about people in the smart home, what they're doing, where they are.
More contextual information in general, I think, which is good. Yes.
So I think that's important for a digital assistant, and that's where I think this data is going to go.
Yeah. So this is kind of weird because we don't know how this is going to play out yet. Currently, Fitbits support Madam A.
They do.
So what is Google going to do about that? Are they going to continue to allow that support?
They say we'll continue to allow Fitbit users to choose to connect to third-party services, so you'll be able to still sync your favorite health and fitness apps to your Fitbit account.
Yeah, that's different than a digital assistant.
I don't know. I mean, I've connected it to my Madam A app. So I'm hopeful that I don't think Google's really interested. It's not pulling the Apple ecosystem approach, right? I don't think it's interested in keeping people within the Google walled garden. I really don't. I mean, look how
that would be a positive change.
No, I mean, they've built stuff. I mean, partly because of necessity, but they have built products for iOS. They have to. They have to. They do complain with Amazon, like the sales tactics, and that is a little iffy. Okay, maybe they do. I don't know. I would hate to be in the position of these companies. I mean, it is really hard with the potential for overlap and
Agreed.
Anyway. Okay.
Agreed.
So that happened. And while we were looking up the Google Fitbit deal, I was lamenting the end of Pebble, which Fitbit purchased. And, all I got from it was this silly Pebble-inspired screen if I wanted to use that as my display on my Fitbit. But Kevin, you found something that is very Pebble-esque.
I did. And I think this is attractive to the people who miss the simplicity of the Pebble hardware and software. So this is an open source powered e-paper watch, and it's called Watchy. You can buy it. It normally costs $50. However, it is out of stock. You can be notified on the site if you sign up for updates. You can be told when it's back in stock. It's currently on sale, unfortunately, for $45. You can only join a wait list. You can't get the discounted price. What it is it's a small e-ink display, and inside, actually not inside, it comes with the display. It comes with a PCB or control board. On the control board is all the hardware, such as the ESP32 Pico D4 chip. Has built-in Wi-Fi, Bluetooth LE, has a battery built in. This is a DIY thing. You actually have to assemble it yourself, but it doesn't look difficult to do. I mean, you have to connect the power, pair the two parts, the screen and the PCB, and put it in the included case and attach your strap. It's not a big deal. What you can do with it, though, and what it comes with, is pre-built code, which is very Pebble-like. It's very basic. It's watch faces. It has the date on it if you want. It has the power levels of the battery of your phone. You can get notifications on it. You can get weather on it. You can get steps on it. And because it's all open source, you can use other people's code that they're putting out watch faces and such to make it your own. So I just thought it was neat because for people who miss the Pebble experience, for $50, if you don't mind doing a little coding or just going with the default stuff out of the box, you can kind of get that now.
Nice. And you talking about this, I actually realized that I wanted to mention something from CES that I don't think I've talked about yet, which is last week on the show, I talked about Bosch's media event. And I mentioned that their CTO, Dr. Michael Bolle, had said about self-driving cars that they would not be deployed in cities in the first half of this century. And That was a translation error, apparently. He meant the first quarter of this century. So basically, he's saying not until 2025, which is very different. And had I known that, I would not have shared that with y'all. But, it is.
Well, I might be alive to see it now. Cool.
Yeah, now you'll be alive. The other thing on the Bosch press conference that I thought was cool is they announced a sensor that is for devices like Fitbits or any sort of watchy could use it, I guess, if they wanted to embed that in there. This is a sensor that will actually learn what you're doing. You can train it yourself for like repetitive motions. So like you could actually train this sensor, like this is a push-up. This is a chest press. This is a deadlift. So you can actually do that, and then it will track the specifics of what you're doing. And to me, this is like freaking awesome. And
yeah, that sounds like almost like a low code or no code way to create an AI model in a sense.
It is. And we're actually seeing more of these types of sensors come out that have the ability to train a sensor. I think it's probably not yet that most users will train their devices, but I do think it's a really interesting way for a developer to start like building differentiated products based on without having to be like AI experts, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, because creating AI models, A, is not easy, and B, takes a while or takes a lot of data. So if they can shortcut that by making it simpler, that can definitely speed up product development. Yeah.
And so this is something they've announced. It's all on the edge. It requires nothing from the cloud. It's actually really pretty cool. So, and that device is called the BHI260AP. Dun-dun-dun.
Very catchy.
Isn't it? I'm always like, I guess, what are you going to do with chips? And it's available now. So, and you can download the software. So, yay, I'll put a link in the show notes because I did think this was pretty freaking cool.
That could be good to like teach it with a good golf swing, and then you get to compare yours against what's a good golf swing and what the sensor can see or whatever.
Exactly. And I've talked to startups. So there's a startup called Keexo, Queexo, that actually has done this. And I'm curious if Bosch worked with them, but Bosch is kind of hard to talk to sometimes, being over in Germany, and they've got a lot of business units. So sometimes it's hard to get great answers from them. Okay, but I'm trying. And let's see. I think, one more little piece of news. Samsung, what is it?
Yeah, this came out, again, the day after we recorded at CES, and I mention it because it's a little annoying, but although I like the idea here, Samsung announced its Galaxy Smart Tag starting to ship on January 29th. It will cost $30. Basically, it's a Bluetooth low-energy tracker, little dongle that you can attach with a key ring or put in a backpack or whatever you want. Uses the SmartThings app, which totally makes sense. You get a proximity indicator where your tag is. So if you're trying to find keys, you can see how far away they are. It can make a chime. That's good. Sounds good, but it will only work with Samsung Galaxy devices. I guess that's why it has Galaxy in the name, the Galaxy Smart Tag. So if you've got an iPhone, you're out. If you've got an Android phone that's not made by Samsung, you're out, even if you have the SmartThings app. So I don't understand why they chose to do that. I think that's a very stupid thing to do. Also, it does not support ultra wideband, which would give you much better distance, more precise location. However, Samsung did say that the Tag Plus is coming later this year. It will be $40. I don't know if that's going to be Galaxy phones only. Again, I think it would be really a bad decision. But if it's just called Tag Plus, I think it will be more universal. If it's called Galaxy Tag Plus,
So really, the only benefit here is you would have it work with SmartThings, but otherwise, you should just get a Tile.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or wait, if you're an iPhone user, wait for the Apple AirTags that presumably are coming soon.
Yeah, we'll see.
We've been saying that for a while. Yes.
Yeah, sure, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, I don't like the fact though that how companies are using Bluetooth in a silo.
Yeah.
It just. I mean,
they're
come
going
on,
to be
it's
using
an open
ultra
standard.
wideband in a silo. I mean, or radar, and
it's a bad trend. It's very, very bad.
It is very bad. We do not like it.
Very bad.
All right, let's go to the Internet of Things podcast Hotline, which is brought to you by Very. Very is a fully distributed IoT engineering firm helping you get the biggest projects fully operational, on time, and on budget. Discover what Very's multidisciplinary teams can do at www.verypossible.com. And this month, actually, all of January, we are going to be offering a smart speaker as our prize. So if you call us and leave us a message, you don't even have to leave us a question, although I'm sure you have some and we'd love to try to answer it. Give us a call at 512-623-7424, and you will be entered to win this month's prize, which is a smart speaker of your choice. Yeah, we figured y'all would like that. So that is that. And let's hear from this week's caller.
Hi, Stacy and Kevin. This is Daniel from Illinois. I have a question. So I run HomeKit. I'm using Phillips Hue bulbs. And what I was debating is whether or not to move the Phillips Hue bulbs out to use the Nanoleaf Essential bulbs, because I was debating on whether to use thread or not. I am also using Eero 2nd Gen routers with the firewall of gold and bridge mode. I was also kind of debating on whether or not I should just drop the firewall of gold and move the Eeros to the main router and just buy a firewall of blue or blue plus. Let me know what your ideas are. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, Daniel, this is, I suspect you might be like Kevin and I, which is just like, oh, let's try everything. Because I'm not sure you need to switch from Philips Hue to the Nanoleaf Essential bulbs, but you can. I can tell you what you're going to give up and what the experience is. So I have a Nanoleaf Essential bulb that I have tried with the HomePod, and that thing is blazing fast. It's really awesome. So I will tell you that. It's awesome. The experience is great, but, it's not so much greater that I would say, hey, replace all of your existing bulbs that are Philips Hue and that you spent so much money on. The things to know about the Nanoleaf bulbs, they are cheaper. They're $19.99. The Thread protocol, which they use Thread and Bluetooth. The Thread protocol is lightning fast. It really is. But the bulbs are a funky shape, Kevin says. And
they are a rhombicosidodecahedron.
Basically, they look like your D&D, like
100-sided
die or 50-sided die. And they also are a little less bright than the Philips Hues, which are not terribly bright. Now, we looked at the lumens, and the Nanoleaf says their lumens are between 800 and like 1100. At the warm setting, they seem dimmer than the Philips Hue at the warm setting. And the Philips Hue are actually only like 800 lumens, unless you get the super fancy 1600 lumens Philips Hue, which I have and are great, but they're not tunable. So the bottom line is, if you like what you have, I don't think you need to switch. If you just want something new, then these are good. The other caveat is right now, this works with HomeKit and it works with Google, but it doesn't work with Madam A, although Nanoleaf says that is coming. So the essentials won't work with Madam A just yet.
I would add one other thing, and that is because you're on HomeKit, you'll be able to use potentially the adaptive lighting that Apple offers once it's supported with HomeKit from by Nanoleaf rather. But they actually have circadian lighting as well as their own feature, I believe.
They do.
So those lights, that way the lights will change color temperatures to reflect the day so that you're not looking at blue light late at night, which will affect your sleep, that you'll go to a softer white and so on. You'll get the blue light in the morning automatically. You don't have to use it, but this gives you that option.
Yes. And since you're a HomeKit user, you're probably going to have a better experience too. The Bluetooth I found is a little iffy with the connection to your phone and that sort of thing. It's all right with the Google Assistant, but the thread to thread is really hot stuff. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, the second part of your question, I'm going to let Kevin handle.
Yeah. So I think I understand what you're trying to do, and that is basically keep your network protected, and you're trying to figure out the best way. Now, you've already spent $500 on a firewall of gold, which I think is a fantastic device. But correct, if you pay for the Eero Secure Plus, which I think is like $10 per month, you can gain some of that protection of your IoT devices, protection from malware, network intrusion as well. So It's kind of a wash there, although over time, you may pay more than the 500 for the firewall of gold that you already have. I will say this, you're thinking maybe you switch over to the less expensive firewall of red or blue instead of the gold. And that's an option. You can, get those for well under $150. But those are limited in the features, mainly because of the processing power in those smaller devices. And they are rated for different network speeds. The red will support networks up to 100 megabits per second. The blue is 500 megabits per second, whereas the gold that you have supports up to 1 gigabit per second. So if you have a fast internet connection or you plan to have a faster one, a step down may not be the right move with Firewalla. The only other thing I would say is, as much as I like what Eero does, the software, the experience, the speeds, I don't care for the protection based on the fact that Secure Plus, it tells you it's protecting you, but the Firewalla literally shows you where your data is going from your devices. And to me, that's important. It may not be to you, in which case you don't need the Firewalla. I like to know where my IoT devices are sending data to, what countries, what servers. And I've seen a couple fluky things. So it depends on how much detail you want, to be quite honest.
Yeah. So there you have it. Daniel, we wish you luck in your journey to switch things up.
If Daniel's like us, he's probably going to switch everything anyway. Just because.
I am getting less excited about switching. I'll be real. I'm like, oh.
It's a chore. It is a chore.
Oh. I have to recreate a good night routine, and I'm only doing it because I see how my husband has to walk around the house doing all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, Stacey, you can take 5 minutes to set up this routine so he no longer has to spend 5 minutes every night, locking all the doors. Me a message about that. You want to get on that. And he's going to be so thrilled when I'm like, hey, honey, I made you a good night routine. And he'll be like, what? Anyway, that is the show for this week, or at least this portion of the show. Please stay tuned for our guest, Ron Korber, who is the CEO of Breezometer, or Breezometer. Well, we'll see how I pronounce it in a few minutes. This is a startup that measures air pollution and uses sensor data plus lots of math to track air pollution at very granular levels. We talk about data sharing, we talk about testing your work and showing your work, and a lot of other things. So it's a good guest. And now for a message from our sponsor. Hey everyone, we're taking a quick break from the Internet of Things podcast for a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Terra, and I have Michael Sack here with me, who is the CEO and founder of Terra, which provides complete IoT services for companies, including IoT strategies, proofs of concept, and rapid prototyping. So Michael, can you help me explain what differentiates Terra in the IoT space?
Terra differentiates itself in 3 primary ways. First, we are outcome focused. Too many IoT projects fail because people undertake them for the wrong reasons. We make sure you have really well-defined objectives and outcomes that help your business so we can ensure we meet your goals. Second, we are fast and cost effective. We have many instances where we've gotten proof of concepts up and running in less than 30 days for under $10,000. Obviously, each project has its own nuances, but we treat your timeline and budget like it's our own. And finally, we believe IoT and machine learning go hand in hand. IoT alone is a very powerful tool, but when you combine machine learning with IoT, you get really powerful paradigm shifts that can change your business.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit more about how IoT and machine learning can change those business paradigms?
Sure. We did a project for one of the largest medical device manufacturers in the world last year. The device is used to perform laser surgery. It's got a bunch of sensors that fail over time from normal use, and the device becomes unusable for surgery. The patient is already prepped and ready to go when they power up the machine and they get that failure message. It's disruptive. It's costly when this happens. Plus, it's just not good for the manufacturer. We use the data that we collect from these devices to develop a predictive model that can tell us when the surgical device will fail 7 days ahead of time with about 98% accuracy. So now our client can repair the devices before they fail. So we've essentially eliminated downtime and all of the hassle that goes along with it.
Wow, that is really compelling. So could this kind of approach be used across other industries?
Absolutely. We do this for many different types of device makers and manufacturers, including paper manufacturers, steel manufacturers, boiler and HVAC equipment manufacturers, other medical device manufacturers, other IoT devices. It really works across all industries. Even on the consumer side, we're doing projects now for wearables and products that people have in their home.
Mike, where can someone learn more about Terra Code and the services you provide?
Stacy, we would love to help your audience learn more about IoT. If they go to terracode.com/Stacy on IoT, we actually have a special offer for them, a free IoT audit to assess their current strategy and IoT initiatives. That's terracode.com/Stacy on IoT.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacy Higginbotham, and I have our guest today, Ron Korber, who is the CEO and co-founder of a company called Breezometer. Hello, Ron. How are you today?
Hey, Stacy. Great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Man, I am really excited because I feel like, I met y'all, not you, but the company in 2016 on a park bench at South by Southwest. And that was the sort of thing one did at South by Southwest. And I was really excited because y'all were taking weather data and sensor data for air pollution, and you would reduce the number of sensors that y'all needed by using, I'll just say, complex math and the weather data to really track how that pollution might move around. And I was fascinated by this because sensors are expensive. So I think it's time to check in on y'all and see where you're at today. How is the original business going?
Yeah, sure. So maybe let's start with like an executive summary of where we currently stand. So just in a nutshell, Breezometer was founded in order to help improve the health of billions of people worldwide who might be exposed to environmental hazards such as wildfires, air pollution, and pollen. At Breezometer, in order to do that, we established a team of experts in the fields of atmospheric science, environmental engineers like myself that are working alongside experts in the field of big data, machine learning, and AI. And by combining these skills and technologies, we are able to provide the most accurate, trusted forecast and health insights on environmental hazards. Currently, our data, which is air pollution data, wildfires data, weather data, and pollen data, together with health insights, are available in more than 100 countries, covering a population of more than 7 billion people. Among our paying customers are some of the leading brands in the field of healthcare, for example, AstraZeneca, as well as tech giants, for example, Bosch, Dyson, Siemens, and Amway, that thanks to them, about 100 million people use our services every day. Since our last meeting, I also think we raised $15 million from leading international investors, for example, Entre Capital, Launchpad Digital Health, Plug and Play Tech Center, and ID Invest. So this is in a nutshell where we currently stand.
Okay, that was a lot. Funding, customers, a real business. Let's talk about what you learned along the way, because I think there's some good lessons here for other companies who are trying to pull sensor data and use sensor data in combination with machine learning. So you started off focused on air pollution, and you started off focusing on sensor data from only the governmental, and you started off focusing on sensor data from governmental businesses. And can you talk about kind of why y'all took that approach and the beliefs that you had in place at that time?
Yeah, definitely. So, before Breezometer, every air pollution forecasting service, and it's important to emphasize that before Breezometer, there were many companies and organizations and authorities that forecasted air pollution. And all of those use the same governmental data that drew data from the same sensors. And the biggest problem to predict air pollution, the biggest challenge to predict air pollution and pollen and other environmental hazards is that you need to have observations. And with those observations, you need to develop specific models that are able to use those observations. And basically, the entire industry was repackaging the data in models of the government. And the government don't create the relevant infrastructure everywhere in the world or even in the US. For example, according to the EPA, more than 120 million Americans are not living nearby a governmental air monitoring station. So we solved this challenge by crunching data from thousands of different data sources and developing sophisticated AI and machine learning algorithms that are able to use this data in order to forecast air pollution. And I would be happy to give you an example of one of the models that we developed.
Sure.
In most cities, traffic is a major source of air pollution. And in addition, traffic jams also affect the ambient air pollution very locally compared to other sources. So in order to provide accurate air quality forecast, we leverage exclusive access to real-time traffic data that derived from vehicle sensors, smartphones, personal navigation devices, and basically tens of millions of connected cars. And using this traffic data, we have developed sophisticated algorithms that knows how the traffic impact air pollution in the city centers nearby the cities. That allowed us to provide accurate real-time air quality data at an astonishing resolution of 16 feet, literally every city block.
Okay, yes, that is a good example. And as a contrast, I just want to bring up companies like Aclima or even things like Purple, which they're trying to track air pollution, but they're doing it by sending out sensors to people, like individuals. And in Aclima's case, they were working with companies like Google to put it on Google cars. And so I feel like your approach is probably less expensive and requires less maintenance. But what are the trade-offs you have to deal with when you're trying to work with fewer sensors and more math?
Yeah, so in order to compensate for sensors data, we need to take into account other data sets which we can use in order to forecast air pollution. For example, traffic data, people reports on fire, satellite data, and so forth. But our main competitive advantage comparing to the companies that you mentioned is that actually we are not competing. Actually, we are partners. The end goal of most of those companies, or one of their milestones, is their ability to cooperate with authorities. Once they do collaborate with those authorities, their data might be available for free for anyone as part of the Freedom of Information Law. So once there is a chance, once there is a potential to use other datasets, we always use those other datasets. And already in our algorithm, we take into account data from private companies that collaborate with authorities. Another thing worth mentioning regarding us compared to those companies and other companies is that when we are thinking about air pollution, when discussing air pollution, it's important to emphasize that there are dozens of different pollutants, and most sensors are able to provide data, accurate data, on only a handful of those pollutants, but there are still dozens that are not monitored. And Breezometer, using the sets of algorithms that we have developed, we are able to forecast up to 35 different pollutants, because different pollutants have different impact on the health of different people. This is necessary in order to provide personalized health insights, which we do for those tech giants and healthcare giants that I mentioned.
Got it. Okay. And now you're moving beyond pollution or beyond basic air pollution to larger things, such as predicting where smoke from wildfires is going to be. And I would love to hear how you made that transition. It sounds like it was kind of always part of your plan, but what new data sets did you need?
So it was always part of our plan. You know, as I started, Breezometer mission is to help improve the health of billions of people who are exposed to environmental hazards. We started with air pollution because that's the most urgent environmental hazards, but there are many others environmental hazards which we hope to get into the future, for example, earthquakes. And one of the next environmental hazards that we saw, which increase and is very challenging to forecast and provide insights, are those awful wildfires that happen almost every summer in California area, in Australia. So in order to provide accurate information on those wildfires, as well as on their impact to air pollution and pollen, we leverage exclusive access to state-of-the-art fire smoke data and models by collaborating with research institutes. And we also take into account people reports on fire. Every time somebody sees smoke in California and you call 911, we can pinpoint the location of the recognized fires and take that into account into our algorithms. And our unique approach also merge those different models to take into account various sources of potential pollution. So we don't only take into account the wildfires data and separate it from the traffic data. We merge those different models to make sure that the pollution forecasting is enhanced. In the case there are wildfires and also traffic, for example. Altogether, we have developed 40 unique proprietary algorithms that allow us, as I mentioned, to forecast almost 35 different pollutants. And using machine learning AI, we can also forecast some of those pollutants hours and even days in advance.
Wow. So like where the smoke will spread, or, oh, hey, it's this particular season, this is where the pollen's going to go.
Yeah.
So what is the process y'all have for checking that these are accurate?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, in our field, the field of air quality forecasting, accuracy is everything. So the way that we validate our accuracy is using our unique multi-layer data approach that basically try to calculate each one of the pollution sources as a standalone, compare that to the other algorithms, and then merge them together. For example, in order to validate our accuracy, one of the algorithms that we use is the cross-validation method, in which we calculate the air pollution levels for specific pollutants at a specific location where we know there is a sensor and a validated governmental sensor, but we use this algorithm without taking into account the sensor's data. Then we compare the reading to the sensor's data, and we calculate the mean absolute error. And using that method and using the output of this method, we can therefore improve our machine learning algorithms so the next run will be even more accurate. And when you think about it, we have data about 40 and growing 40,000 sensors worldwide. And we are doing this cross-validation method almost every hour. So you have a lot of output on how your algorithms perform in different occasions, during wildfires, during summer, during pollen season, and so forth.
And do you have any advice for people who are trying to build out algorithms based on other people's data? Because this is going to become a more common issue. And I'm curious how you try to evaluate the accuracy of the data. We talked about checking your particular algorithms, how you negotiate these contracts. What are some things that you've taken away from this that you might be able to offer to others?
Yeah, so again, another great question. The way that we see that, and it's part of our culture, is to make sure that you are transparent. It makes sense that at the beginning, the accuracy wasn't as good as it now. But from day one, we were very transparent about the methodologies we use to validate our accuracy, the algorithms we develop, and we even share the results of our accuracy on our website, and we still do. And using that transparency, you can receive back feedback, and that opened the path for our collaboration with those leading healthcare companies that literally use our solution in order to recommend asthma patients, COPD patients, and other patients of chronic conditions, taking into account our forecast, how to use their services in order to improve their health. So the first step is to be transparent, receive the feedback, and based on this feedback, what is the next step, which accuracy parameter or which methodology you need to improve.
So let's go to the future. What's next for y'all? Obviously, you've added wildfire tracking, you've got pollen. Where do you head from here?
Yeah, so in the fields of, air quality and pollen, being accurate is just the basis, because when it comes to air quality and pollen and basically other environmental hazards, personalization is key because certain pollutants can have completely different impact on different people. So the first step is making sure that we have the most accurate data set. But the second layer of innovation, what we call part of our innovation stack, is our ability to provide very personalized and timely health insights on the potential health effect for different profiles. For example, pregnant women, elderly, asthma, and COPD patient. And that's take into account both the profile and the pollutant that this profile might be exposed. The next steps in our innovation is to further improve our ability to provide those personalized health insights to different businesses so they can better perform, they can improve the health of patients much better, reduce cost, and basically optimize their business.
Got it. And so this isn't ever going to be a direct-to-consumer play. It sounds much more like you will sell it to companies that then offer it to consumers. What are the advantages of doing something like that? Because it feels like a lot of companies are just going right to the consumer.
Yeah, so it's all started with our mission statement. Once you have a very visible and direct mission statement, from there you can break down the next step. So our mission statement is to help improve the health of billions of people who might be exposed to environmental hazards. Reaching billions of people alone will take a lot of time. And while we speak, people are dying because of air pollution. While we speak, people suffer from many diseases, chronic diseases, because of pollen and air pollution and wildfires and other environmental hazards. So our goal was to reach as fast as possible those billions of people. And the next step, to provide insights for the companies that can help them improve their health and save their lives.
Great. Do you have any examples?
Yeah. So if we look at pollen, at seasonal allergy, so in the US alone, about 30% of the population suffer from seasonal allergies. The challenge with the treatment for seasonal allergies is that you need to make sure to take it before you might experience those symptoms, and it's even preferred to take it before you might be exposed to pollen. Our ability to forecast pollens days and sometimes weeks in advance have helped leading businesses to better prepare their business. And when I'm saying better prepare, it's making sure in terms of logistics, they have enough stock at the right time for the right patients, as well as in terms of marketing. You want, if for companies that have those solutions that we work for example, AstraZeneca, they want to make sure to have those targeted ads a little bit before pollen season will kick off. And the results are astonishing in terms of the ROI we deliver to our customers. They have 3 times better marketing ROI results. And of course, behind those amazing business numbers, there are millions of people that get their treatment at the right time and therefore can improve their health.
All right. Well, those are great examples. And Ron, we're so glad that you came on to tell us a little bit about Brizometer, how to handle data and combine it with math in ways that maybe people haven't thought about before, and given us solid real-world examples of how this can actually help. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Stacy. It's been a pleasure.
That's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, if you'd like more IoT news, sign up for my newsletter at stacyoniot.com. We'll see you next week.